Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Lights Everywhere. In this show, we showcase people that have discovered God's divine purpose for their lives and they are making attempts at working it out. People that are shining as light in various spheres of the society. And today we have somebody very dear to me here with us. We have with us Pastor Omo Imoukhuede. Pastor Omo Imoukhuede is a very good friend of mine. We have known each other now for about a decade, or even more than a decade. He's a man of purpose. He's a pastor here at the Citylight Church. We're co-laborers together, and we have this awesome privilege to talk with him today. Pastor Omo, welcome to Light Everywhere.
Thank you, Pastor Land. It's an honor to be here.
So how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, thank you. And you?
I'm well. Thank you very much.
It's a privilege and an honor to be sitting with you.
Thank you.
Talking.
So tell the audience a little bit more about yourself. Who is Pastor? Who is Omo? Where you're coming from? Tell us, your home life and all that. Just a better introduction of yourself.
Well, I am a very simple person. I am, first of all, I would say, a child of God. I believe that that's where everything begins. Our identity should come from God. So I like to think that I'm a good boy with regards to the way God sees me. So I have a relationship with God. So that's what it starts with. I'm married. I'm married to my beautiful wife called Osen, and we have 3 daughters. As far as my background, where I'm coming from, originally from Nigeria, but based now in Chicago. Been living in Chicago for close to 13 years now, and I would say that my passion really stems from my values. I'm one that I'm passionate about God, and I'm passionate about helping people connect to God, and I'm also passionate about people having a clear understanding of why they do what they do. So I also I'm a very helpful person. I think God has given me blessed me with a gift of helps, to be of help, be an encourager to people. Prior to my getting saved, I grew up in Nigeria and went to school there, and gave my life to Christ at a very early age. But somewhere along the line, I kind of lost touch. I lost sight of my purpose. Grew up in a Christian home, Christian parents and everything, but lost touch. But I want to thank God that God was able to help me retrace myself. One of the things that happened was I met you, and God used you to show me some things about purpose in life, and I'm just constantly trying to live that out. So that's been in a nutshell.
Thank you, Pastor Omo. It's good you mentioned values.
Yes.
When you were talking about who you were, you said, what you do, who you are, stems from your values. And I think it's something that a lot of people need to hear more about. Because many times when we are asked to identify or introduce ourselves, we usually talk about what we do, but really not about who we truly are.
Yes.
And it's when you understand your values, then you can understand, who you truly are and what you really stand for and what is most important to you in life. And then that can now interface, with what we do. So I just have a quick question for you. How did you come to discover your values? Those things you mentioned, about your values of God, family, and all that. How did you come to that? I know you are a man of, many talents. You are a teacher, at a university, you are a pastor, you are a businessman, you are a creative artist, you know, you do many things. How did you come to a point? And now, of course, we're going to be talking about the fact that, you're an author, because we're going to be looking at your book. How did you come to that point? How did you come to identify those values? How have you come to this point that you are right now?
Well, thank you. It's been quite a journey, because I would say, I would quote, I think it's Aristotle that said, "Man, know thyself." One must constantly be evaluating and looking introspectively at who you are. And for me, it's been a journey. I remember being a young boy, just like you mentioned, being involved in a lot of things and trying to figure out which one I really, who am I? What am I supposed to do? Especially, it was especially challenging for me because I seemed to be good at the time, good in a lot of things. So it was very difficult for me to really pinpoint, because one moment I'm here and next moment I'm there. So it was a journey, and I think it began when I began to pay a very close attention to some dissatisfaction that I was experiencing in my inside. I was experiencing some kind of an urge inside for more. There was just something that kept recurring in my mind that, no, you are much more than what you're doing. You are much more than your environment. You are much more than whatever your eyes were seeing. And I still couldn't pinpoint what that was. And it took a long time. I had to leave Nigeria, travel to Spain, experimented with different types of things. And then finally, when God allowed us to meet, one of the things that really triggered the discovery was just I would say my rediscovery of God. Because everything begins and ends with God. I love Rick Warren's book, The Purpose-Driven Life. And in that book, the first chapter, it's not about you, it's about God. And when I rediscovered God again, God began to tell me some things. He said, he began to minister to me and say, listen, I know you, I created you, I made you, so I know you more than you know yourself. And I know the areas that you should be focusing on now. I know what you're supposed to be doing now. And the more I communicated and I connected with God in that respect, and I became very honest with myself. Because when you're honest with yourself, you are able to drop those things that, even though you might enjoy, but are not in line with your ultimate purpose. And take on those things that you might not necessarily enjoy, but tie in with your purpose. So I think the journey began with discovering God first. My relationship with God started getting better. And then wholesome relationships with people. I began to read a lot more books. Honesty within myself. Self-evaluation, like, okay, who am I? What am I? Why am I here? What is this whole process about? And focusing on my strengths. I began to look at areas of my strengths, like what are my strengths, and then what are my weaknesses, and as that began to, and of course it's taken over a long time, God began to help me narrow that scope and help me to focus on those areas. So in terms of how I got to the value, I know I'm answering quite long, how I got to the values. God, and then honesty, brutal honesty. What am I about? Am I a guy that values family? Am I someone that, I looked at my life, I assessed my life, I saw that ever since I was young, I've always loved God. I've always wanted to be in church. I've always wanted to, so that I knew that was something that I valued, so I looked at family, my family background. I had a close relationship with my parents. I saw through that. I said, family is something I value. I want to one day have a family that will be, close. And, I looked at followership. I said, followership is something I value. I love following, when people follow good people and when that results to something good. I look at things like, honesty. integrity. Those are little things that I just observed, in my life. I said, I like this thing. I like this, and I think I hold it, in high esteem. And as I began to identify those areas that I really loved to identify with, God began to help me now adjust those things in line with His purpose for me.